I'm a Mason alum. I graduated in 2020. This is very long. I got my bachelor's degree in Internet studies in 2020, and then I became advanced in master's of interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in social justice and human rights. I've worked in a few different parts of the university. I was in housing residence life, but my biggest accomplishment, I guess, is working with the Black male successfully. I'm very excited that they collab with you all here to learn about travel. So the Global Education Office. The Global Education Office, also known as GEO, offers a diverse array of programs around the world. This includes all of the terms that Mason has to offer, including the spring break, summer, fall. So you actually have the opportunity to travel with other Mason students, or you can go independently. You can earn from 0 up to 18 credits. And they also have the TESOL certification as well as internships. For all major celebs. As well as a range of independent options, scholarships and other resources are available. So what are the benefits of choosing the Global Education Office? You can choose your own experience. You can also have the opportunity to study with Mason faculty. You study at partner schools, which I think you'll hear get your experience on. They exchange your direct enroll. The global internships, they offer virtual internships. Cost of funding, study abroad is eligible for financial aid, which is very important, as well as the program can cost. The GEO scholarships, Mason scholarship, and external scholarships are also very, very important, as well as the passport.
So the Zoom people asking you to talk a little louder.
Oh yeah, of course. So the most flexible and affordable GEO options. So as far as internships, you actually have the opportunity to build your own. The in-state tuition plus a $60 travel insurance cost and no $200 application fee. The travel grants provided are $500 for 1 to 3 credits, $1,000 for 4 to 6 credits. Flexible timing, credits, and housing. I mentioned earlier about the virtual internships, in-state tuition, flexible timing as well, and it also has the opportunity. The Thailand paid teaching internship, you basically make a stipend while teaching there. And then the next one we have is the Buenos Aires. 3 housing options. Of course, they vary in price, but a part-time is available while taking Mason classes online during the semester. And then the last option, the homestay option that include meals and flexible days as well. Semester exchanges. In-state students, exchange programs, Mason tuition. For out-of-state students, that is a direct enroll program, or you can pay the international university tuition. Mason Korea is also Mason tuition, no transfer credits there. A few of the Mason-led programs, the affordable short-term Mason courses, which is the winter term. And then, of course, there are the 3 options here, the Spanish language and conservation storytelling, the Puerto Rico option, and the Italian language and culture. So about the Global Education Office and its programs. So they have 225 travel and virtual programs available throughout 47 countries, 27 partner locations for guaranteed travel and internship. The Global Education Office also awards over $100,000 per academic year. Important deadline. So the March deadline is for the summer and the fall semester academic term, and the October deadline is for the winter break, spring semester, calendar year, and then the spring break is open until November. Programs usually accept applications approximately 6 months before departure. And I will tell you from my own experience, they are very serious about their deadlines. So make sure that you have a pen and paper or take a picture so that you know. Summer travel internships have earlier November and February. Dr. Berger, if you haven't seen or met Dr. Berger, you definitely need to. She is a staple at George Mason University. I think that's very important. I'm not going to read her entire bio, but I will go through it. Since joining Mason in 2010, Dr. Berger has helped students secure more than $2 million in external funding for national scholarships and fellowships such as Warren, Fulbright, Gilman, Truman, National Science Foundation, and Critical Language Scholarship. She has helped 30 students receive Fulbright awards, many of whom are first generation or minorities. Dr. Berger is the director of the African American Studies and the History and Art History programs at George Mason University. As an art historian, her research focuses on the intersections of art and social activism in the Black and Jewish diaspora. In 2019 and 2018, she designed and led a faculty-led study abroad course in South Africa on monuments and memory in South Africa. This challenge students to look at the intersections of art and social activism in color. Dr. Berger received her master's and PhD in art history from Duke University and a bachelor's degree in art history and international relations from Stanford University. She also had her first monograph, Irma Stern and the Racial Paradox of South African Modern Art. This was published in 2020.
And Dr. Berger will be here. She's teaching right now. She'll be a great resource for a lot of you. So she is the director of African American Studies. Previously, before that, she was the person you would go to for scholarships or fellowships or any type of way to try to fund your study abroad opportunities. Dr. Berger was the person to go to. She now does have she doesn't have a colleague anymore because she transitioned. But the new person in the role is Dr. Bruning, and we can provide more information about Dr. Bruning and what she does here on campus.
Yes. Definitely, like I said, if you have your phone or if you're taking notes, definitely take note of their contact information. This is Dr. Berger and our other contact here. All of their contacts. The objective of the panel. The goal of this panel is to create a space to discuss the experiences of Black students who have studied abroad and to address the ways that this has impacted their education. We hope to show that global education is an accessible, life-changing process that is stronger by diversity. And as you know, historically, Black and brown students have not had the opportunity to travel abroad and compared to our Black counterparts. So I think that the object of this panel is to show that it is possible. And that I'm going to introduce you to our lovely panelists, and I guess I can start here on the good part. Alexis Bassler, did you want to?
I did. Okay. Well, I'm Alexis. I'm a senior here. I'm a global affairs and French major and a minor in African American studies. So in terms of study abroad, I did the Fact Finders trip in 2020, which is a trip to Israel and Palestine. And then I got the Bourne Scholarship to study French in Senegal this past summer, so I stayed there for 3 months. So I did one trip that was organized by Mason Hillel, and then one trip that I organized by myself. So I feel like one of my fun facts is that I went to Senegal by myself. So I mean, it was a lot doing that, but you know, it showed me like I can travel as a Black woman abroad and still, you know, find my own community in another country. And I guess another fun fact was that I swam in the Dead Sea in Israel and Palestine. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Selena Pensy. I've done a number of study abroad programs, 2 with Mason and a couple others with the State Department and on my own and with family. I did the Fact Finders program as well as Israel and Palestine, and then later on I did the International Securities Program to Switzerland, and during that program we also went to France, Belgium, Luxembourg. So I've done a lot of traveling with the State Department. I was on different programs to Brazil and Germany. So I've been able to just visit a lot of countries and just sort of understand how, you know, you present yourself in different areas of the world, how people perceive you in different areas of the world. So yeah, that's
relations major, concentrating in media production and media criticism. I'm also minoring in African and African American studies and women and gender studies. I did the Oxford, I guess you could call it the experience. It was fun. Had a good time. It was kind of scary in the beginning just because, you know, Oxford, it's a bunch of white people. So, and the culture is very different from like an American culture. So I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into, but it was Oxford, why not take that chance? And the fun fact has to do with one of get into it, but like it's there's clubs and organizations that you can join while you're over there, which I highly recommend that you take advantage of. And one of them, which I don't recommend, but it was the union, which is this big political, it's really white people, but they have funding, and the parties that they throw were really good. It was resembled something of the Great Gatsby, so it was nice. I have sculptures, fairy lights, chocolate. They grind up coffee beans right in front of you. I was like, I've never heard of that. So yeah.
You went for the education.
Oh yes. It's two-sided.
Hi, I'm Calista. I'm majoring in public administration with a minor in global affairs, and I did my study abroad experience in Madrid, Spain. I actually went as a freshman through one of Gio's program. I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now, but I did it. I actually went this past spring, so I'm currently a sophomore. I guess a fun fact about it, because since I went through the freshman only program, they organized a bunch of, I guess, like adventures and places for us to go as well. So I was able to see 3 cities outside of Madrid. My favorite being Portugal, which is in southern Spain. Like if you've ever heard of the Glass of Portugal, that's what I want to see. And I guess on my own, I also had a lot of free time because of the way the school system was structured there. So I did a lot of traveling, especially on the weekend, because I had like Thursdays through Sunday.
So I think I'm just gonna like kind of ask around random people. Let's start with the letter. Why did you choose to study abroad? Actually, no, we're not gonna do that. How did your study abroad experience change you professionally, academically, and personally?
I would say the trip to Senegal definitely changed me a lot. It kind of just showed me you should definitely research where you're going before you go. I researched a lot about Senegal, not even just like the weather, the terrain, but also like the people. Because when I went there, Senegal is 95% Muslim, so you don't have to dress a certain way, and they say that, but that's not really true. Like you have to like cover yourself a little bit more. Greeting is definitely important, so I had to learn some Wolof. And like you can walk around by yourself, but like certain times at night, like you should definitely be inside or need to be with, you know, another Senegalese person in a larger group. So like just knowing like when you're going to other countries in specific areas, it might be a good idea just to know like the culture and like certain rules that they go by. Like Fridays, everybody's at mosque, so everybody, you know, wears white, or everybody's dressed really nice, or they have like certain it's called a boo-boo, but it's like a dress that they usually wear. So like just knowing that and respecting that is really important. So it just made me like a more culturally conscious person. But also I felt really brave because I did a lot of activities by myself. So like I would take myself out on dates. Like I would just go to like these beachside, like these beachside restaurants and just like sit by myself and have something to eat and just like enjoy the scenery. So just like don't be afraid to do something by yourself, even if you are Black, you know, you can definitely do it. So
Anybody else want to share? It changed you professionally, academically. I guess I will go. Oxford did change me a lot academically. The work was surprising. It was a lot, but it was more so. So you know how here you have like a bunch of assignments, and then it's like a deadline to hard.
it's like teachers aren't very nice. They can be like very mean. The culture there is really focused on like mental health, and it's very much focused on like not like you getting it done when you want to get it done, but like understanding that there are outside stressors. So when having like 30 readings and having to do like a 4 to 8 page paper every week, and you have to do 2 of them, to have like teachers or professors, or we call them tutors over there, it's like a one-on-one session, to have them understand that like there are things. I got sick when I was over there. I was out, so no work was getting done. I had to literally be in the bed, medicine, tea. Um, so to have somebody understand that, and then like you can get it in, or we can catch up, or I can work with you, was very good. So it changed me academically to more focus on what was suitable for me outside of like an American culture, to work, and not actually concentrate on myself. Then on top of that, it also allowed me to say like it's okay to like also be like a scholar and still have a professional and a personal life outside of like what you're already doing. Um, Made a lot of connections. Like I said, it's Oxford, so you have to take advantage of like everything that you have around you. So it changed me professionally in that way, that I have like a good amount of people that I can reach out to for like graduate school, or if I'm trying to get my doctorate, I can always go back to my tutor to like help me out or write a letter of recommendation. So um, personally, I would say I'm more sure of myself, because to take a chance and to go all the way to a different country and not really know what you're getting yourself into, and it's a whole nother culture with a whole nother life. And Oxford is very prestigious, so to know that you can make it in that type of environment was very uplifting for me. So.
I think just as a follow-up, because I know did all of you get college credit towards your degree for your?
It's just because like instead of going like the classes they're loose. So like to do like you know what today we just go and practice speaking to people we're going to the market. Like it's very loose. There's no grades. So I'll fight for the credit, but probably somewhere around 9 is when I did another study abroad program, but it was domestic. So about that.
I got all my credits. I'm still working on having the be like my transcript be into my. I don't know what's really going on, but the transcript is there. My grades are there. I got the credits, but working them into counting for my degree is something that we're still trying to connect, because we got to make our own. We have the option to make our own syllabus, so you can choose classes from like different departments and different areas that like suited what you wanted to do. I did race, class, gender, sexuality. So it's like, I have to try to apply it to my minor, my major. So yeah, but I'm going to get all of the credits because I make sure that they line up. So
How many credits did you get?
um,
You finished. It'll be how many? 9?
13, 12.
12?
It was a full semester. Of,
12? Oh,
yeah.
But you can get up to 18.
Just make sure they line up before you.
Yeah.
Like, especially with languages, it's so hard, so just make sure it makes sense.
Like talk to your advisor and make sure you talk to your GO, so that way, and do it in advance so you're lining it up so you don't have to end up like.
But that leads into my next question, and I'll come back to the next year. But again, Kevin, what were your biggest challenges before going abroad, whether it's finances, logistics, or anything like that? Secondly, what was your biggest challenge while you were abroad? Outside of before and while you
Before I left, so I did some programs in high school and some programs in college. Obviously, I was younger. I did the Switzerland program this past summer, and so with that one, I think some of my biggest challenges were one, figuring out the financing of like, okay, I'm spending this much while I'm there, like I have to pay for these certain meals, we're going to do like these activities. Also, Switzerland is like one of the most expensive countries in the world. So yeah, break the bank over there. It was really nice, really fun, but that was one of the largest concerns, like, okay, do I have the funds in order to support myself? Like, we had to buy ourselves dinner the entire time while we were there. We got lunch and breakfast, for free during the week. But then on the weekends, lunch, breakfast, and dinner, you have to pay for yourself. And then extra trips, things that we're going to do for fun, things for groups, stuff like that. When we're traveling to France and Belgium, like there, nothing was comped. Everything for that entire week that we were not in Switzerland at our host university. We had to be paying for our own meals. So just figuring out the finances was probably one of the largest stressors. And of course, like the GEO did a really good job of preparing you for the educational part of it. But I think like as students, you're now in a new area, you want to go out, you want to go explore. And so just sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was going to have to pay for that, or this is not something that I can budget for. And figuring out like what you're going to do financially over there, and if you're willing to pay for what you're willing nothing for. And then one of the largest challenges while I was there was also budgeting. Now I'm there and I need to spend the money. But also, I think my group was pretty large. We had about 30 people that were there. So figuring out who in that group were good friends to be around, who was somebody that I could, be in class with and also be outside with, was somebody that I'm not gonna get sick of for the next month and a half or month, studying and going out and having fun. There's always dynamics in a group. Some people are great, some people are less great. But generally just figuring out like how I mesh with everybody else and how I'm just gonna get through the next month without sort of like causing problems or something being in the middle of something. Even though I don't think anybody goes over anywhere to be like, oh, let's create drama, but sometimes it just shows up. And so just making sure that I was like not getting caught up in things that weren't gonna matter in the long run. I focused more on myself, my education, my studies, and just enjoying my time abroad that I don't get very frequently.
So for me, since I went through the Global Gateway program, that was the freshman program, a lot of my expenses like housing and meals were covered through my tuition, so I didn't really have those problems. But for me, honestly, it was my passport, because I didn't have a US passport, I have a foreign passport, so I had to prove how long I had been in the States to make sure I'm not, a trigger in order for them to like to get a passport and issue my visa. So that was my biggest problem while here. And then once I got to Spain, my biggest problem I'd say was switching from Latin Spanish to Spain Spanish, especially in the different regions, because in Madrid they spoke Spanish one way, but then once you got to like the Basque region and Catalonian regions, they spoke Catalan, which was completely different from actual Spain, well, the rest of Spain Spanish. So, and they also spoke a lot, and I guess like the way we speak in slang, they also speak in slang, but it's really hard to understand it when it's in a different language, because it's like they shorten the word, they don't say the full word, and then they speak generally faster than a lot of people do. Like my host, that even his family couldn't understand him a lot of the time because of just how fast he spoke. Like, so he like slurred his words. So I guess my biggest challenge there was like realizing I don't actually know Spanish.
And then I know she kind of spoke on the passport thing. I don't think the GEO office can help with that part. But I do know I mentioned earlier in the slides about the passport scholarship. So if you have trouble financing getting a passport, because it is expensive, the GEO office does offer passport scholarships. And this question is up for anybody. But so you had your issues before while you were there. What was your biggest issue once you got back? Was it readjusting? Was it the time? Like what was it?
It was definitely adjusting. I thought like, because when I was in Senegal, like it's so different. Like they have like animals everywhere. I was taking cold showers every day. They eat a lot of rice and like zero vegetables. So it was just a lot going on. The food was good, but like still just like adjusting in that way. And then when I came back, I was like, okay, so there's no seaside restaurants, there's no beach. I'm not swimming every day. I have stress. It's not 70 degrees and windy. Like it was just so dull in comparison to where I just came from, and like everybody's speaking English. I had to like, because like in Senegal I was speaking French, I was speaking Wolof, so I had to like come back and be like, okay, you know English. So it was just that, and like having to go back into my life, and, like do all the things that I do. But you know, I'm glad I got the experience, and I feel like readjusting just showed me how well I merged into the other community that I came from.
So for me, I want to speak again on the language thing, because since I was in an environment where I was hearing Spanish like 98% of the time, it was English no longer became my default language to use. So even at the airport when my mom came to pick me up, I was speaking to her in Spanish without even realizing it. So it was one of those things where it was like, dang, reverse culture shock is so real. And also I had entered a car maybe 3 times my entire time in Spain because I took public transport everywhere because it's like a really accessible city. So entering a car for the first time in so long and like seeing the roads and how it was so weird. I was like, oh my god, cars are a thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that readjusting to the culture, it really made me realize that America is ghetto. I was so upset coming back because everything is so expensive here in comparison, and it's like the quality of food, the quality of like the products that you're getting. My skin was so clear when I was there. The water was so crisp. Like the food just tastes like they put effort into raising it. Going to the grocery store, everything's just like, where you can get like a pack of chicken for like, what was $2.50. I don't know how to do it. It's £2. And going to the grocery store and get a pack of chicken that can last you for a week, like for £2, and then coming back to the grocery store, I'm having to pay like $13 for something, and then skincare, I could pay like £5 for like a moisturizer. They come back here paying like $30 for that same moisturizer. It was just I was hating it. It just was not fun. So yeah, it was adjusting. That was the hardest.
And I guess just as a follow-up question, what did your decision making look like as far as wanting to go to the specific?
Chose my study abroad program. I chose the Switzerland program because my major is conflict analysis resolution, my minor is in data analysis and intelligence analysis, and I intended on doing the BAM program in international security. So it's like international security studies program, international security master makes sense. But then you have like fact practice program in Israel and Palestine, which doesn't directly relate to like any specific studies that I'm doing, but Israel and Palestine are countries in conflict currently, and I'm studying conflict, so that, you know, immediate connection there. But generally, anywhere that you go, you're going to learn a lot, either about yourself, about the country, about the place, people, the way that you connect with the rest of the world. So my thought process behind any country that I go to is really like, what's new about the place I'm going to, like if it's full of European countries. So at some point, especially Western European countries, they're more similar than you go to a Western versus the European country, or like a South American country versus the European country. So the broader that I branch out, the more I need to learn about the world. So that's like what goes behind my decision on where I go.
Okay, so for me, it was mainly the school. I had looked up the different schools in each country when I was making my decision, and the school that Mason sent you to for Madrid was one of the top law schools in Madrid, especially if you're pre-law or you're already doing law. It was one of the best schools, and I plan on pursuing international law. So I was like, this is a really good opportunity for me to meet other people who are also doing international.
My next question, I'll start with Alexis this time. Were you the only Black or person of color on your trip? Or the only person in the class excursion or
Well, when I was in Israel and Palestine, I saw one Black person, and I'm pretty sure that they were African. So, like, truly, I went to the country from top to bottom, Israel from top to bottom. I literally saw 0 Black people. But when I was in Senegal, I was amongst all Black people, and I wouldn't say I was the only American either. There's actually like a huge presence of like French people there too, so it was like it was a mix. But I would say where I was taking classes, there was plenty of like Senegalese teachers, but there was a lot of like foreigners. So there's like a lot of German people or Australian people. So I was still like, there's still like 3 Black people at the at the place where I was taking classes. So there's like these little pockets of like foreigners around Senegal, which kind of makes the dynamic a little interesting. But I was surrounded by Black people though, so it was a good place to pick. Like Africa's a good place to go if you're afraid of being Black while abroad. I can't speak for all of Africa, but Senegal and West Africa, safe bet among people that look at you kindly and treat you kindly.
Surprisingly, I was not the only Black person there. Well, that's not surprising. But in Oxford, yes. Not no. Besides the people in my program already, yes. There were a few Black people who were in the library. There were a few Black people who were like hanging around that area. You can see like 1 or 2 Black people when I'm like walking in like all of Oxford. And plus, I kind of didn't pay attention to that because surprisingly, they were very welcoming. It's very LGBTQ friendly. Like they were flying the pride flag on top of the school, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. It was more so like the focus on my Americanness than it was on my Blackness or my queerness. So, and then my program had a lot of Black people in it. Well, not like a lot of Black people, but to me, it was a lot of Black people. It was like a handful. So yeah, I mean, it was comfortable if that's what we're looking for. It was very comfortable for me to be there. I didn't really feel, if anything, I felt a lot more attacks coming from here than I did from there, but it could also be in the area that I was. But I also traveled outside of that, of Oxford, into like different cities, and it was the same thing. They all are like very welcome. They're just really nice or something. So yeah.
I have to share, when I was in Switzerland, gander, yeah, there was probably 2, trying to count my head, I think there were 2 other Black students on our program. In general, not a lot of Black people in the middle of Europe, and then even traveling throughout like Germany, France, like again, same sort of issue. There was never like a safety concern. Generally, it's like a safe place. I will say like any country that you go to has a race problem. Like it's really everywhere in the world. So there's no place I'd be like, oh, this was definitely no issue. But like having traveled to Brazil versus Europe, I felt safer in Europe than I did in Brazil. Even though their population has a is very largely Black or mixed race, they still have racial issues there. And it really comes out when I was like going to different schools and talking to people who were there. Some people would talk to other white students who were there before they would come talk to me, and it was like a repeating pattern. So some places I was not noticing that there was a racial disparity in terms of like representation, like there's not a lot of Black people in Switzerland, but I was concerned about it because it didn't pose a problem for me. Whereas in Brazil, it was much more noticeable that people were acting on their innate bias or like any racism that they had, and it was a lot more in your face and harder to just be like, oh, like that's all my Brazil when we have fun and eat, bread or something. But like now when people are actively acting on that, when you can tell that everybody wants to talk to your friend who's white, but nobody really is coming up to you to hold discussions, it can be really disheartening sometimes. So I think really just knowing that some people are acting out of ignorance, some people are acting out of willful ignorance, and some people just really are not there for you. And that's kind of what it is, like that's okay. And there are other places that you can find in that same country where people are gonna welcome you with open arms. So not to say that like racism everywhere, like be afraid, like that's not what I'm saying. But generally don't think that you're trip is going to go one way or the other because of the idea of racism existing around the world. You can still have a really good experience.
I just want to add, like, don't let it discourage you though, because you didn't go abroad to find people that look like you anyway. So the whole point is to diversify your experiences. So, like, don't let it deter you if there's like that country doesn't have a huge population of Black people. Like, I've been to Iceland. Nobody was there that was Black. But did I like what I saw? Did I enjoy the food? Yes. So like sometimes you just go because of the nature that they have, the language that they speak. It doesn't necessarily matter if there's like a bunch of Black people for you to go to community around.
I think, well, I'll start with you actually, since you started with the neighborhood. And of course, everyone can answer the question, but what did the process look like before you got there in terms of that about I know when I did also move to Jamaica, and we did a lot of preparation about Vancouver prior to even going on the trip. We had a whole group chat. Like, what did that process look like for you actually?
Okay, so we had our professor, who was Leslie, and then we had our TA, who was someone who had already done the global gateway experience, or she had gone to the country that we were going to. So those who were there to help us. We took like a class the entire semester. We had a semester-long class that kind of prepared us for what to expect and to walk us through the entire process. So everything, like I said, I did not do as work. So they helped me throughout the entire like application process, like getting my matrix done and stuff like that. And then for enrollment into the school, they sent us a bunch of forms to like sign and stuff, like how you would do regular enrollment here. And then they did all the like, I guess, sending it to the host university for us. And then for our homestays, they gave us a questionnaire to ask us like the type of family that we would like to be with and the types of things that we allowed and didn't allow in the house. Like for me, they asked if I was okay with them smoking, because like smoking is like a big culture in Europe. They asked if I was okay with that in the house, if they could do it when I'm not there and stuff like that. If I wanted host siblings, if I wanted to live in the city or outside the city. So they kind of just asked me a bunch of questions that to allow me to be comfortable with where I was going. So I was like,
Like beforehand, I'm in a group chat. So there's ironically was seeing a lot of like TikToks that were like, your group chat makes it to the first stage, we're all friends. So it was a good experience going through the group chat. People were like, oh, you packing, what are you wearing? Like, who's going? We all had to find our own way there to Switzerland. So not everybody left together. So some people were like, oh, I just happen to be on the same flight as you. Let's meet up ahead of time and we'll do this at the third. So there was a really good like camaraderie of supporting one another and preparing for the trip and for the program. And then not also for fact finders as well. Like we had a group chat set up and everybody was talking, and for that program we did things together. So yeah, it was just good, to start talking to people ahead of time, even if you don't know who they are, what they look like, where they're coming from, when they're going to be. Just being able to have that connection, so when you get there, you're like, oh yes, this person that I've been texting for the past month. I now have a face put to the name, and it all makes sense. So.
And are you guys still connected?
Yes. The pictures of them doing the same stuff together. Like she just went on this huge trip and I was like, wow, I never made it out there. Like there's like this rainforest down there. It's safe, it's not safe. But she went and I was like, dang. So yeah, I'm definitely still close. So I definitely want to go back and see everybody that I made.
actually don't live with that of her. She's my sweet mate. So can't really see.
Yeah, from personal experience, I know when I went, I still like my friends on Facebook. I'm graduated now, so I guess Facebook is still. So we're still like definitely connected, and I feel like. So those are all the questions that I have for the panel. Is there any questions that you all have specifically? It doesn't have to be for their experience, because we're not just studying abroad in general. Definitely want to get any questions.
first day.
First week out there, first 3 days. ID, train, debit card, all of it. Didn't even know until an hour later.
You never want to look like you don't know. Like, so like me, I walk around, but phone, just everything, but you really need to put everything in a bag and put that bag across your body and hold on to it. It may look like you're like scared that someone's gonna steal your stuff, but they're not gonna steal it because you got it like all tied around you. Like, never walk around looking like you don't know where you're going either. So, like in Senegal, like that was a huge thing. They'll be on a motorcycle and just swipe your stuff. I know a guy, he got 3 of his phones stolen. 3 because he bought a burner. Not a burner, but he bought like a little cheap phone to like make local calls. He bought 2 of those and his iPhone. All of those were stolen, one after another. So just hold on to your stuff and just be cognizant of where you are and where you're going. And I would also say you need to try to learn the language because people will try to like say things to you that you might not know what it means, or like in Senegal, I had to keep taking taxis. I took like 3 or 4 taxis a day. So like they'll try to up the price because they think they know that you're American, but like if I spoke to them in Wolof or like in French, then they're gonna lower the price a little bit. So just like don't let people take advantage of you, or just like know how much things are supposed to cost, because like that's a bargaining economy. So nothing costs anything. Like, you can just say like how much you want to pay, and they'll let you know like, oh no, I want more, or you want less, you know. So just kind of know how much things cost and like where you're going. Those are the 2 biggest things. So yeah, I spent a lot of time with that. Yeah.
I'll also add, the language part is really important, but also like be ready for inconveniences. Because sometimes you get there and you think you're prepared, and then sometimes you're like, I actually have no idea how to handle this problem that I never have been faced with nor ever thought about. So what do I do now? So just be like ready to find your feet, and not just like and it's not scenarios that are like, oh my God, building's burning down, like not like that, but just, you know, if you misplace your wallet, or if you run out of cash and they don't take your like Discover card or something like that. Just like being ready to not be able to buy certain things at certain times just because you don't have funds, or like not be able to go certain places because the train stops at like a certain time, whatever. Just being really cognizant of sometimes things just don't work out, and it's like, okay, like laugh through all the problems. But also people like to stare a lot. They just look at you, and it's not like why are you here kind of look at you. It's just like, oh, I haven't seen a person that looks like you ever, or you know, in the recent year or month or something like that. And so they just stare a little bit. So don't be offended by it, because you can't find everybody. So yeah.
Just to add on to that, people are gonna want to like if you go to a place where they are not used to seeing a lot of people of color, they will want to take pictures with you like very celebrity. They want to touch your hair, like yeah. Anybody else?
I have something to add to that. Also, I remember with the study abroad program, they told you to take money out because it's a lot cheaper. But when I got there, they were taxing when you had money with it. So they were charging more for having paper money than for you to pay for your card. And then also I would say for like if they're doing like the little, because I went to a lot of farmers markets, that's acceptable to have money at the farmers markets, it's cute. But like when you're going out to dinner, or when you're going to like the mall to buy something, or like, you know, like the everyday stuff, use your card. And then get a card or a credit card that has transactions that are acceptable internationally, and make sure it's covered within the country that you're in. That is very important, because those fees do add up, and it takes out a lot more money that you plan on spending out of like the fees than people like really want it to. And that's what finance is very important.
To add to the card thing, I don't know if other like banks do this, but I know that Bank of America has a student credit card specifically for traveling overseas, and it gives you like, they don't tax your purchases when you use the card, and you build your credit, so why not?
Actually, you have to like kind of know where you're going, because in Senegal, they don't use credit cards, they don't use debit cards, like everybody is using cash. And as a person that does, I don't even use a card, I use Apple Pay. So to have none of that, and to have to keep going to the bank to get cash was crazy for me. But like, you just have to know where you're going. So like having to use my debit card to get cash, to get like, their money, and making sure that those charges on my card are like, like seeing how much that actually costs my money. Like, it's just like you have to be aware of your finances. So yeah, don't go somewhere expecting they're going to use cards because they might not. I had to bring 2 different cards with me too, because like one day like ate my card and I was like, oh, like, I had to call security to get my card out there. So just make sure you don't have one source of money that you're relying on. Because if that's gone, what are you gonna do? Because they're not gonna send you a card in the mail that quickly. They're just not.
There's some questions on Zoom. One of the questions was, did you happen to have any microaggressions committed against you while abroad? Did your intersection of identities ever cause you any disparities?
Microaggression. I joined the Caribbean, the African and Caribbean Society when I was over in Oxford. I went to a club because the drinking age is low and everybody, it's a party type of thing over in Oxford. At every social function we're drinking. Well, you don't have to drink, but drinking is acceptable. I was there at the club. It was one of the clubs down the street. And this guy, okay, I have blonde hair. But this guy was like looking at me and he was trying to touch my hand. I was like, oh, like, no, we're not allowed to do that. And then I had another incident where he asked me if I knew what part of Africa I was from. And I was like, let's not ask that again. But it's like they don't know. So it's like they're very curious because there's a lot of African people who come there. So you have Caribbean, you have like, I know there was the Nigerian community that's there a lot. So when coming to ask me, I was like, okay, I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm American. I really don't know where I'm from. So yeah, that was one.
Remember one time in Israel, when served me and my friend, like they said the place was closed. But then we walk out and we see some people walk in and they get served. And I was like, we just wanted some shawarma. Like, why does it have to be like this? So like, that was the only time. And so I didn't receive any microaggressions, but everybody's black. So.
I actually had that same experience where they wouldn't serve me. But I actually wasn't in Spain. I was on spring break in Portugal. And one, they just didn't take non-Portuguese credit cards or debit cards. So we had to get cash. And then 2, we had to fight to be seated. But this lady told us that all the seats were full. We're looking at an empty restaurant. And we were like, what is going on here? And she was like, no, people were coming in, they had the seats reserved. We stood there for 30 minutes and waited. I was determined to eat at this restaurant. And eventually she was just like, okay, come right home. Thank you.
Another one on Zoom.
Did you find that your U.S. accent helped you to navigate places where you have different accents that might not support?
I think the accent for me is a dead giveaway that I'm American, and I really don't want people to know that often because they're gonna either think you're rich or dumb. So I try to use a strong like French accent, or I try to do a little. It's just hard. So like I try to like disguise it a little bit because I don't want people to know that I'm American like off the bat.
Right.
So it's not, but they like Americans, but then they're gonna ask like, oh, where do you live? Are you from New York? Like, can we get married? Like they're gonna ask you. Yeah, I got a lot of marriage proposals now. They don't ask you that, and so like it's like I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm just gonna speak to you in a way where you don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that the American accent does not help in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, usually because people have a lot of opinions about America, rightfully so. But like they have a lot of opinions about America, and so when you're an American going to another country, they're usually not like, "Oh, thanks for coming." That's not the typical approach of somebody who's talking to you. And they'll tend to have a lot of questions, not necessarily about, they'll have a lot of questions about your race too, but for being American, they'll just be like, so why do you like Trump? And you'd be like, I don't know. So yeah, just like explaining American politics sometimes and figuring out like sometimes we just have just a lot of opinions that really have nothing to do with you, but because you're American, suddenly everything is your problem. So yeah, I just find it doesn't
I would say it was a little bit of both for me because the younger British people, they love the American accent, so they want you to talk all the time. But then the old British people, I remember we were in, my friend, what was actually my roommate, was giving a speech for his second or something. And as soon as we walked in, we were like just talking and having a good time. We have a bar there, so we were all like getting drinks. And then we walked into like for him to give a speech. And all of the old rich people had the worst looks on their face. Like they were so rude to us in the beginning. But then, of course, my friend killed the speech, and then we were highly respected. But I'm just like, you do deal with that, but it was more for like the older people. And some of the older people, we were really being honest, the older white people. But yeah, I feel like it gives you benefits, but then it gives you like you can be discriminated against because of that too.
For me, it was more like they were entertained by my accent, if that makes sense. But so side note, the Brits are hated in Spain. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole
I know,
Europeans do not blame the Brits so much. But it was like every time they hear me speak English, they're like, "Oh, you're not British English, you're American English." I was like, okay, I don't know why that matters, but yeah. But then when I speak Spanish to them, I'm like, okay, maybe they're more comfortable with me speaking Spanish. They're like, oh, you have an American accent when you speak Spanish. I'm like, I'm trying my best. I'm trying so hard right now. So it's more like they were just entertained. They just asked me to say a bunch of random things in Spanish because I have such an American accent when I speak it. So like then when I'll try to speak in a Spanish accent, they're like, no, you're fine, you're fine. And I'm like, what do you want? So
yeah, definitely on the language thing. Like when I was in Germany, I spent a year as a teacher in Germany and I was trying to learn German. And so there I had the host family, they're very supportive of me learning German. So like, yeah, speak German, even American accent, it's fine. But then in France, I also speak French, but they're much more like, if you don't speak French, it's French. Like they're not fans of people who do not speak fluent French with a French accent. And it's very apparent. Whereas like other countries would be super supportive of learning and they're like, just speak English, we'll figure it out. So it really depends. Like that goes back to the do research of what country you're going to. Like it makes all of it.
Yeah, like, I want to ask, because I signed up to go on like a winter break study about Paris.
No.
It's great. I have zero friends, so like I'm just like wondering like I'm trying to like learn like basic phrases, but like if people like switch, like if they know you're bad at French, do they like just switch?
yeah,
Yeah.
they won't even let you try.
I speak French almost fluently, and sometimes like people that are French don't even want to talk to you because they're like, no, it's this, it's this. I'm like, okay, but you're like squishing those words together. That's not how I learned it, So I'm not going to discourage you from learning a language, but they're not going to respond to you in French anyway. They're going to speak to you in English. They did the same thing to me, and I was like, yeah, so that's
It's kind of a relief for me, like, because if they responded in French, I probably wouldn't really understand them that well. So
yeah.
for me, I guess it would be an advantage. But
If you want to attempt to speak French, I'd say go anywhere outside of Paris. It's really just Paris where they're really snobby with their French. Like in Bordeaux, I attempted to speak French. They spoke to me in French. They were really nice about it. It's really just Paris.
And it's not even like they'll tell you to stop, they'll just speak English.
Yeah.
They're like that.
Do we have another question?
Yeah, it says, if you have/had to de-escalate a racist encounter abroad, how did/would you recommend doing it?
That's a really strong word.
Yeah. I personally never had a problem where something needs to be confronted or like where I need to something was really going down. Like I've never really had that problem. I think a lot of people don't have like the audacity basically to go up and say that to you on like a regular basis. For all the different countries I've been to and the time I spent there, like I've never experienced that. I know some people have. I don't know how they've dealt with it, but I don't know. I feel like it's something that we tend to over prepare for because we're just so used to having those experiences here in the US. And although they might happen in other countries, they might just not be as like obvious about it.
No, but this is unrelated. I just wanted to add, so like when you're in other countries, just be aware like people are gonna try to sell you stuff. That's one thing when I got back, I did not miss because somebody's always trying to sell you something and they don't take no for an answer. So I had to like learn some like special Wolof phrases that mean like no, please get away from me. So like yeah, people are going to try to sell you stuff, especially if they see like what you have on. Like in American, like when I was in Senegal, like I didn't wear like certain watches or certain rings, setting on people thinking like, oh, she's got a lot of money or something like that. Like even if it was like not even that much money, you just don't want people to like look at you and see like a price tag. So like yeah, like I would be sitting at a restaurant, people will come into the restaurant, look at me and try to sell me things. I'm like, there's like 30 other people here, but you see me, right? So yeah, just beware of like vendors.
Paris, well, now that we're on that subject, Paris is also one of the worst, if not the worst place for pickpocketing. And people, the going up and selling stuff to you is like a real issue. And it's not just like he'll be in your face. So they'll like hand you something, and sometimes if you're talking, just turn around and like hold something, you're not paying attention. Now they're like, okay, give me €5 or something. So now you have to buy something and they're not going to take it back from you. And so like I've had experiences where my friend and I were sitting on a bench and these two people are eyeing each other and they're walking towards us in opposite directions, getting ready to pickpocket us. And we all like turn around and make like a circle barrier, like so they know that we've seen them, which is given excessive, but like it's a very, very prominent issue that nobody's like trying to currently resolve. It's kind of like, oh yeah, don't get pickpocketed. Yeah, exactly. It's like that's on you for getting pickpocketed. Should have been paying more attention, right? So yeah, just do the over the shoulder thing, pay attention. When you're walking, walk with purpose. Don't like lollygag through the streets.
Actually, did like a flex story or like the four titles of your parents.
Don't have a Fortnite.
Where did you go to your passport and your wallet?
In my suitcase, in my room, in wherever I'm staying. I don't carry my passport with me. Carry your like ID. You could definitely print out copies of your passport, so you can carry like a paper passport with you. Because if your bag is stolen and you've got your wallet, you've got your passport, you've got your phone, you've got your whatever else all in there, that's your whole way home is gone. And you have to go to the embassy, get your passport, you need to figure out how you're going to contact your family and tell them that you can't come home on time, so don't go to the airport on this day, whatever. So when you're going, like carry the essentials of that day. Like your passport is not essential of that day unless you leave the country. When you're carrying your wallet, don't take everything in your wallet with you. You probably have a bunch of random cards in there that don't have to do with anything that you're doing that day. Take cash if you can. Paris is a great place to use cash, but you don't have to use your card there. If you don't have cash, don't use your card, that's fine. But that is like a good example of knowing where you are and what you need to be having during those days. And if you're doing an activity where you're not even going to be anywhere where you're paying money to do something, take a minimal amount, something that's not like, $100. You don't need $100 to go and just look at the Eiffel Tower and go home. So just be really aware of what you're doing and only carry the things you need at that day at that time. Like not everything needs to be with you all the time.
I definitely agree with the paper passport thing because I know in Spain that was how they did ID for a lot of international people. If they ask to see your ID and you give them your American ID, they're immediately going to ask you for your passport. So a lot of the time I actually need to have my passport on me because for some reason my actual ID didn't work for them. And I also want to go back to the whole pickpocketing thing. I don't know if it's just a Spain thing, but for some reason, when the woman would say no, they just wouldn't accept it. So in order to scam you, they like come up to you like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. And then they like slip a bracelet on your hand. And you're like, oh no, thank you, I don't want it, right? They never listened to me. So what my friends and I did was we had one guy friend just trail us at all times. He was always with us because for whatever reason, every time he's like, no, she doesn't want it, they'll only ever listen to him. So if you can find out one reliable guy friend,
think so.
Any other questions or? Yeah, absolutely.
I would say it's a very helpful panel, very entertaining. I have a few questions. So one, like, what do you think is the main difference between like if you were to only travel to these countries versus, like the study abroad experience?
That is something you need to figure out before you leave. They are two completely different experiences. Like when I was studying abroad in Senegal, when I first got there, I had a very rigorous schedule because I was like, I want to take 200 hours of French before I'm gone. And then eventually I was like, this is terrible. I've only seen the inside of this classroom. And then eventually I was like, I'm going to reduce that greatly and then go see the country for what it is. So like I had a different program just because it was funded by an outside scholarship. So I kind of had leeway with what I wanted to do and when. But study abroad sometimes, they want to do lectures. They want you up at 8 a.m. and they want you in bed by like 9. And it's like, okay, like I saw a lot today, but I'm tired. Did I absorb any of it? So I mean, I haven't done a Mason study abroad program. I'm not sure how lax it is, but sometimes people just want to go on vacation and that's okay too. So like, just decide what kind of experience you want to have, because sometimes when you do a structured study abroad program, you're not in charge. And sometimes like when I was in Israel, it was so much all the time and it was great and I'm glad I did it and it was funded, but sometimes people just want to sit by the beach and relax, but these are two completely different things.
I didn't have a rigorous
Yeah, it's water and
Your ice sculpture.
My
Yeah.
schedule was it was okay. The schoolwork and stuff like that was a lot. I had a lot of work to do, a little time span to do it in, but I'm glad that I did it with like the study abroad because it at least had like some type of structure to it. Then on top of that, we had dinners that were paid for. We had field trips that were paid for. Went to London twice. So it was like, it was good. It was fun. I do agree with like, you don't get to see much because within that there are restrictions. COVID is still a thing. Now we have the rise of monkeypox. So it's like where you travel and how to get back in and how you're getting out is very important. So it's like, even though you're traveling to a different country and other countries are more accessible within that area, so you want to go travel the world and do all that you can, it's still a thing of like safety, and then you are being watched over because they are still responsible for you. So if you want to take a vacation and you're trying to get in and out of the country, I would say look at that before you go and you do it. But also there are things that you can do within the program. I went to a lot of different cities within there. Like I said, I went to London twice and it was a very good time. So yeah. And be prepared to do schoolwork, like for real.
Honestly,
Yeah.
my thing, well, it was like this because I made it like this. I only had class twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I was in class from 10:45 to like 8:15. So, and yeah, and my school was like a 40-minute train ride away. So I was out of the apartment from about 9:30 till 9:30. So it was like a 12-hour day for me, but I really liked it that way because it meant that I had longer weekends and I had a break in between. And the way my particular school worked, there was no assignments. You show up to class, do whatever the professor says, and then you have your midterm and your final. Those were your only 2 chances to get your grade. So yeah, it was it was one of those things where like if you didn't show up to class or like you don't go back and review, I guess like the PowerPoints or like the teacher's notes on what he said in class, you're screwed. You only have 2 chances to get your grade. So you have to stay on top of your work, but you also have to realize that you're in a different country. Okay? Take advantage of that. I know for Spain is like one of the most vaccinated countries in the world right now. So I had very few restrictions on being able to travel within the country. And once I did leave the country, all I really had to do was like show my COVID vaccination card, and especially for Portugal. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, if the program is strict, you can still make way for you to be able to like see everything else. And if the program is lax, you have to remember that you're not there for vacation, you're also there for school. So like depending on it, like you can give yourself a healthy balance of both if you actually try to do it. Yeah, my Switzerland program was, I think that's definitely the most rigorous program that I've been on. And I had 2 assignments every week that required like 2 paragraphs each, and a lot of reading to do and things like that. But then usually within those programs, they also sometimes build in like site visits, and like you're not just staying in one place because you're abroad, and you know that there's so much out there to see that can actually help learning, and so it's not just being stuck in the class all the time. Not guaranteed, but likely. So yeah, like you said, just building in that extra time depending on whether your course is rigorous or not. And I think a lot of people tend to study abroad and look at it as a vacation because you're in another country. And it's very easy to get carried away with that. Like, sure, you can go out and you can party every night and wake up at 7 in the morning and go to class if that's your thing. Or you can be responsible about it and really think about like how you're going to enjoy your time. Are you going to wake up hungover 7 a.m. in class for the next 5 hours or 12 hours? Or are you going to want to wait till the weekend where you can really enjoy yourself and be learning and relaxing at the same time? So I think just finding that balance is really important. And knowing like what the point is. Like if you really don't want to be doing work over the summer, don't do the study abroad. Not the thing to do. But if you need to get extra credits and you're really dedicated to understanding the assignments and getting them in and doing the work, a study abroad is a really great way to do both, be able to enjoy your summer, be abroad, absorb all the culture and all the differences wherever you're going, but also be able to, graduate with a degree. So I think it really just depends, and you have to know, like you said, like what are you looking for? If you go looking for something and you just choose a program because it's abroad, it's not going to help you and you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think just outside of their experiences, the Global Education Office website actually has spotlight stories of alum that have taken trips for good. So if there's a specific trip, spotlights that.
Also, I will also add that I think when you're traveling abroad, there's a study abroad or like through a program and not just as, like a visitor, tourist, thank you. You're more likely to, like the way that you act is different. Like you're really spending more time there because your study abroad usually allots for more time to just kind of explore and like wander and just really be able to grasp the culture. Whereas if you're traveling as a tourist, you're usually like doing surface level things, you're in the touristy areas, you're not really getting involved with the community and with the people. So it's a really different approach to the way that you act in the country. And I think that also makes a really good difference. It just depends on traveling as a tourist is fine, a tourist helps prop up the economy, we need that. But if your goal is not to just do touristy things and like just be at the beach, but you also want to be able to understand the culture and be able to like go into somebody's home and just be with the community and the family and stuff like that. Like traveling as like in a program is much more helpful than traveling as a tourist.
Yeah. So my last question is, do you have any tips on finding internships abroad? And then I know you all mentioned it, but now that you've been abroad, like, can you see yourself like maybe living abroad like, in the future? Yeah.
I can answer the second question. Yes, I definitely want to live abroad. Like studying abroad just showed me like there's better things. There's more out there than just what's in America, to be honest with you. I wouldn't say my whole entire life abroad, but at least a couple years, especially like after college, like while we're still in our 20s, I think like living abroad can be like an actual option. So yeah, I think just getting out there and just seeing what other communities are present and just seeing that like I can adapt to them kind of inspired me to think bigger than just America or bigger than just Fairfax.
I can kind of answer both. I know that if you go to the Global Education website, there are a list of internships that you can do abroad. I know there's a specific one that happens in Barcelona. So if you do the research, you'll find it. And I know my host institution there also had a program that allowed you to do internships at the school, even if you were an exchange student. And for living abroad, I definitely want to do it because I don't know how, but I ended up as an English teacher. Yes, I was teaching English for a while to like 2, 3, 4-year-olds and stuff like that. And it was something that I found myself actually liking. So I think I'm actually going to go back and continue.
Yeah, there's a, what's your major?
Fine.
Yes. Okay. I have friends at the Carter School because we're all conflict majors, and so like one of my friends who studied in Czech Republic. But all of those programs, like internships, like the places on the website, is a really good place to start. Also, just go to your advisors; they tend to know a lot about where you can go. If you have any like mentors within whatever college that falls under, talk to them as well. I don't know too much about computer science, but generally everybody needs workers everywhere. So there is likely internship, and a lot of companies as well, especially if they're international companies, will have places for you to intern in other countries as well. Usually you have to look on that company's website for the country. Like if you're in Germany, it's like .de for Deutschland, which is the word for Germany. But if you're in the US, you're not gonna have DE because it's not a US, link. But generally, like a lot of large companies will also have internships that you can find in other countries. State Department also, those have a lot of internships that you can do abroad for an array of different locations and bureaus and stuff like that. Yeah, Intel community has a lot of options. They're really everywhere, but you kind of have to go digging for it.
The Geo website is a really good resource, but you also have the folks who work in Geo,
Yeah.
who I would go talk to them, right? And so they can help you and support and navigate you through those things. That's what they're there for. And I know they want to be worked. I'm not speaking for Kelly, but yeah, someone in the room who can really help you navigate those sort of things. Some more hands-on experiences or discussions as opposed to what a web portal would be.
And then I also know that you can get that type of stuff funded too. So if you have like an unpaid internship, but you really want to do it, there are ways for that. There are ways that you get paid. So that way you're making money while you are giving your service out. I know there's scholarships, there's fellowships, there's a bunch of different things that you can do for that. In terms of living, I definitely recommend at least trying to make it happen, but looking at it at the semester before. So if you want to go for the spring, start looking in the fall. If you want to go in the fall, start looking in the spring. So that way you can just have a good order of things so you can get everything in line. And if you're looking for a potential place to live in, I think that doing a study abroad is actually really good for that. Additionally, you would have to do a lot of research before you would go, just for like finances, culture, how are things down there. If you're going to a different country with a different language, then you have to obviously know the language. And if they speak English for a majority of the time, or is there a part where you can just speak strictly English? I always am going to recommend the UK. It has issues, but I really think it's a beautiful place because it's not too much of a culture change because it is, I don't want to say it is identical to America. So it's not too much of a cultural shift. It's very beautiful too, so.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to the event. Hi, everyone. I know some of you, but not all of you. I was teaching, so I just got here late, but my name is Dr. Berger. I am the director of the African and African American Studies program here at George Mason University, and surprise. Okay. And I've worked with my dear friend and colleague, Gary Davis, for many years on this program and other programs. And in fact, we have led our very own study abroad program to South Africa. And we eagerly want to run that program again. And in order for us to be able to run a program like that, students need to sign up and participate. So when we have that program up and running again, we'll let you know. I'm in this role right now because I studied abroad as an undergraduate. I lived in Germany for a year as a graduate student, and then I moved to South Africa just after I got married in 2004. So I'm a product of international education and a product of Black studies. And so anybody who's told you that study abroad is not for Black people is wrong, because this is very clear evidence of everybody in this room that study abroad is important for the work that we do. It matters and it's possible. So most of the work that I do here at Mason, both as for 12 years, I was the director of fellowships. And so, you know, I worked with students like Alexis to apply for the Warren Scholarship, for the Gilman Scholarship, for the Fulbright Scholarship to go abroad. And then I transitioned into the role of director of African American Studies. But funding is one of the main reasons that students say they can't go abroad. And we need to provide opportunities for students. So, you know, Alexis, I'm sure you talked about the Warren Scholarship and some of these opportunities that are available, but I also fundraise for African Studies to create opportunities for study abroad scholarships. So if you are an African Studies minor, which I hope everybody in this room signs up, there are special scholarships for study abroad programs for AAAS minors. And that's a really important aspect of going abroad. I'm available if anybody wants to talk about how to get abroad, what the experience is like. You've heard from these young people what it's like, but you know, everybody has a different experience, and that's kind of the fun of this event, is that you get to hear people talk about going to different countries at different times. And in this post-COVID moment, you know, this is a really interesting time to be studying abroad. Finally, I'll say that I'm also currently serving as the president of NAPSA, which is the Association of International Educators. And the organization is 10,000 members of individuals who are all coming together on U.S. college campuses to support international education. And this is the first time that the leader of the association has been someone in Black studies. So I think that this is a really important time for us as Black people and as people of color to really take ownership of the study abroad experience as something that is for us, and not to feel like we're excluded from it. There's so many benefits to study abroad. It broadens your mind, it gives you academic benefits, but it also helps you to see and understand the ways in which we can be oppressed in our home country differently. So almost any leader that you see, that you've read about in your history textbooks, has had an international education experience, and that has transformed and influenced their own activism. So it's not only an important academic experience, it's also a tool for liberation. So just to keep that in mind, and I want to thank the panelists for coming today. Thank you for moderating. Kelly, thank you for organizing all of this, and I'm just happy to see such a nice group of people.
Anybody else have any final questions? And not only your anxiety, because my mom was real scared. So if you had to also
So I had major anxiety before because I did not have anything in order. I didn't have a passport. I brought my plane ticket last minute. I had to change the location of the plane ticket. I had to leave my truck up at the airport. So it was just like everything that could, well, besides me actually getting on the plane and going, everything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. So I was just like, yeah, I don't even know if I want to go nowhere. But I was just pushing through, knowing that it's going to be okay, and knowing that this is for the betterment of yourself and your academic future. It's something that you need to keep at the forefront. You're not only doing this for yourself, you're doing this for the people around you and the people that are going to be coming after you. In terms of parents, I just had to do this. I got updated my dad or anything that was going on, because I'm like, the last thing I need is somebody else causing me stress. So it's like, parents be a lot. And it's like, you don't really know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. And they're all the way over there, but you're trying to do what you can with the best that you have. and this is a new territory, I would say just keep pushing and knowing that this is going to improve you at the end of the day. That was the only thing that kept me going.
I wasn't scared to go, but I wasn't scared until like everybody kept saying bye to me like I was gonna die or something. Like everybody was like, bye, Alexis, I love you. I was like, why are you telling me this like I'm not coming back? So like that really made me nervous. And then I was scared once I got there because I was by myself and like I arrived on a Thursday, so on Fridays in Senegal everything's closed. So I'm by myself. All the food places are closed. So I'm like, I'm starving. Like, where am I gonna eat? I was just, it was kind of a mess the first couple days, but you know, I met some people, I called the center, they helped me get something to eat, and I was like, you know, everything's fine, you ate, you know? So just, you know, you kind of have to roll with the punches, and I wouldn't think too much about it before you leave. I would kind of just make sure everything's in order, and the experience you're gonna have is the experience you're gonna have. There's nothing you can do to control it before you go. So, and if your parents are stressed, they're gonna be stressed. I mean, you have to get on the plane, you know? I mean, that's not in your control. So, I mean, my parents were super stressed, like, call me when you get there. I wanna talk to whoever's driving you. Like, they were just, but you know, at some point, you know, you are an adult. So it's about you and the experience that you're gonna have.
Yeah, I think knowing your stressors is really helpful. If your parents is one of them, they don't need to know everything. Sometimes if your day is going great, yeah, it's fine. Like that's the answer you give to your parents when they call or text you. You know, they can very easily overreact and you don't have all the answers all the time. So it's really difficult to be like, oh, why did this thing go wrong? That seems like it should be in my control. Not a clue. And that's not an answer that people usually like to get as a parent. So just know your stressors and find coping mechanisms with things that stress you out here. So if like having a lot of homework stresses you out when you're abroad, that's not gonna get any easier. So like know that you like journaling or that you like painting or going out in nature or talking with friends, you know, like figure out what it is that you do that relieves any sort of stress for you. And, you know, that way when you're abroad, you can find ways to do the same thing or something similar that sort of release those same endorphins. Like, okay, it's fine. Like I'll relax, I'll get over this, and the next day, new day, we'll start again. We'll have a better day. So just really knowing like where your pressure points are and knowing whether or not outside classes, like if you also have a connected friends, they're like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, tell me right now. But you don't have the energy to text because there's a 5 or 10 hour, you know, time difference and it's 4 a.m. where you want to just want to sleep. So yeah, just knowing your own limits and how you cope with what happens when you get to your limit and knowing how you're going to communicate with people while you're abroad, because usually people are either going to have a lot of questions or they're not going to text you, and that can affect like how you feel in that relationship. So just know that like you're abroad, it's you time right now. It's not really about anybody else. And that's, you know, you'll get back and you'll deal with those relationships.
So I have the stress feelings.
She was good.
That was good.
All right, yeah.
Oh, yes. So was that the Gilman scholarship?
She said besides the Gilman scholarship, are there any other scholarships you need that are coming up?
So you looking at me, right?
Yeah.
So yes, so the Gilman has a rolling deadline. So there's a couple of different deadlines depending on when you're studying abroad. So I don't have this memorized right now, but on the website you'll be able to look and see, like if I want to go abroad in the summer, it will tell you what that deadline is. If you're applying for the Noire scholarship, which is for longer term study abroad at a minimum of 6 months to study a critical language, that deadline there's a campus deadline, that's first, and then a final deadline. The final deadline is in February. The campus deadline is usually early January. So if you're interested in the Warren Scholarship for anything coming up from this summer on, I highly recommend that you contact Dr. Megan Bruning because she's actually advising students on that one right now. Some of the others, like the Fulbright, for example, if you're thinking about applying for a postgraduate year abroad, that is due every year in September. So you'll start to see info sessions for that in the spring, and there's a 9-month time frame for that. So some of them have a really short time frame, like it's open for a month, you turn it in, you find out to get the money. Others, it takes like 9 months from the time you decide you're gonna apply to the time you hear back from it. And Dr. Green has a really good Instagram feed where she posts info session information and deadlines. So if you follow her, I think she's at GMU Fellowships, that will start to get you hooked into the nationally competitive scholarship. Lauren? So yes, so you can do other things abroad, like you can do an internship abroad, you can do research abroad. They don't care about all the other things you're doing abroad as long as you are studying a critical language abroad. So that's kind of how they do that. And you don't have to be necessarily already advanced in the language. There are some languages where you can be a beginner.
And for the study abroad office for our scholarships for the summer, they're open now and they're due either February 1st or March 1st, depending on the scholarships. And then the Fund for Education Abroad, they just opened up their scholarships for the summer too. They're not anything with Mason, but they're great scholarships that are out there. I think they're general, I'm not sure.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for participating. I really appreciate your engagement with the panelists. Give it up for your panelists. Presentation office to Gary over in CCTV. I guess the panelists can stick around for about 15 more minutes. If you guys have any other questions for them, definitely feel free to speak with them or any of the staff. It's been great. It's been a great experience.
Me too.